Hi, Dan. How are you?
Fine, fine. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, Dan. Hope you had a great holiday, and it's so nice to talk to you again. So I'm going to be showing your blog here so that people can see what you do. Show my screen. There we go. Okay. And, I guess we should start here, Dan. I know you're a hard money advocate. You're an analyst of gold and silver. But as we wrap up this year, there's been a bit of a bump in gold. And
I sent you a few charts if you want to put while we're talking, but I'm going to analyze them anyway in a more general way.
Okay. All right. So, knowing you, I'm betting and I'm guessing that your stance and bullishness on precious metals has not changed, and that, even when we go through consolidation periods or declines, that the gold is something that you believe everyone should have, and unlike cryptos, to have physical possession of at least some. So am I reading you correctly?
Yes, my original becoming bullish on gold after more than 30 years not touching it. I used to trade it and invest in it right before the collapse of the gold exchange, dollar exchange standard in 1971. I started following it with my father in the 1960s when the first signals came out that there is a major crisis with the dollar exchange standard, and central bankers at that time, only Western Europe and the United States, created what's called the London Gold Pool, which was supposed to save this Bretton Woods gold US dollar exchange standard. It failed in 1968 when France, General de Gaulle, president of France of that time, just said, this artificial support, this cartel doesn't work. I'm getting out. So the London Gold Pool collapsed, which was an official one because it was only central banks of Western Europe and United States. And soon after, so that happened in 1968. In 69, in a desperate move, they created a currency, an international currency called SDR, Special Drawing Rights. And not many people know that the original creation of that SDR was calculated in grams of gold, about 89 grams of gold. So approximately 1 gram. So it's exactly the ideal standard that I see, which is 1 gram of gold being the standard. And but the United States didn't want it. They didn't like gold. And
I remember, I'm not that young anymore either, but I remember it was illegal for U.S. citizens to own gold, I believe, until 1975, 1976. It was legal again, and at that time, gold opened at about $200 an ounce, and then promptly dropped to 100. My first short trade was in gold.
Yeah, it became legal. Actually, first what happened is in 71, Richard Nixon ended the gold exchange, and in 1973, it was completely eliminated even from the SDR. The SDR became a basket of 18 currencies, and at the same time, individuals in the United States were allowed to buy gold slowly. Keep in mind that in 1973 there was no internet, so there was only physical stores to buy, and in United States and Canada there was no place where you could buy physical gold except from a jeweler. I used to commute. I was in school in Switzerland, and in Switzerland I could go to the corner store where they exchange currencies, and I was able to buy gold coins, the British sovereign, the French Napoleon, the Swiss Vernet. It was so easy to do it. You just went to the foreign exchange desk in front of the train station, and you could buy gold coins, which when I came to Canada and I lived in Montreal.
What was the price per coin back then, Dan, out of curiosity? And you were doing it in where, Switzerland?
Yeah, it was in Switzerland. So it's just before it started. So it was around 35.
Okay, near what used to be the official gold rate.
Exactly, because the collapse of the system happened in 1971. On the free market, it was already starting to be above that official rate, but it was, let's say, around 40 on the market, maybe 45 for a small individual who wanted to buy a coin. So it was very. Yeah, so it was very easy to do it in Europe. In Canada, I was in Montreal, even 75, 76, internet did not exist at that time. And there was only, I think it was Guaranteed Trust in Montreal, somewhere in Old City, which offered the possibility to buy physical gold. And it was a line, people waiting in line to buy it. So the facility of buying gold during the crisis, when it went up to 850, it was completely different than today, where individuals in the United States can have access.
Right. So you're talking about the bull move into 1979, early 1980s, that peaked on the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, and that was also during the Hunt's silver squeeze that took silver to 50 until they changed the rules on the Hunt brothers to liquidation only. So great history lesson. What I'm interested in, and I'm sure your readers and our viewers are, what's on the radar screen for 2018 for gold? What do you think are going to be the major events, whether they be geo or economic, that's going to shape the destiny of the yellow metal and silver as well, Dan? What are you looking at? What's on your radar?
Yeah, I mentioned that because the collapse of the gold exchange standard did not solve the problem. It was supposed to be temporary. So by 1980, Mr. Volcker gave the impression that the debt issue of the United States is being cleaned up. And we switched, and thanks to the strategy of Henry Kissinger with the petrodollar, gold did not come back. It was the dollar that became very popular, and it became the global de facto, if you want, standard, but a very unstable standard. And since the crisis in 2008, we see that the problem has not been solved. And I call it, I'm a physicist by education, so I'm going to use an analogy from physics, which is unstable equilibrium. Unstable equilibrium, if you take a ruler and you hold it by the bottom, it doesn't want to stay there. It wants to go down completely. That would be a stable equilibrium. And the international monetary system right now, since 2008, it's been in a very unstable equilibrium, ready to collapse. And I'm not one of those who sees the end of the world, the death of the dollar. I just see a resetting of the international monetary system on a different basis that it was de facto since the 1980s, which is the US dollar. So that is my thesis, that gold is coming back, and we've seen it since 2008. by central bankers starting to buy back again, mostly what used to be called emerging markets. They call it now developing markets, and especially Russia and China,
Yes.
who have been buying extensively. And my decision in 2004 and my analysis and my research when I came back into gold massively was 5,000 within about 15 years. So 2004 plus 15, that's about 2019. And it comes about very close. I cannot give a precise date, but it seems to are coming very close to a reset of the international monetary system. Would it be, there are two possibilities. One, it's going to happen through a collapse, a major crisis that collapses completely the system, or it could be done through the international monetary system in a collaborative way, the G20, where the countries sit together and they make a decision to readjust, to redo a new system, which could include some gold into it, or just the present SDR as it was updated in last September, October. So it's hard to say what comes out in political, geopolitical negotiations. We have the election of Donald Trump that has changed the consensus at the international level, and you've seen it, that almost on every issue, United States finds itself isolated. Donald Trump doesn't seem to like to build coalitions. Ronald Reagan was very good in attracting and building coalitions and also show leadership. He did it with Margaret Thatcher and forced many others to follow United States. What's happening with Donald Trump is that Donald Trump is kind of my way or no way. And he's creating a chaos environment in geopolitics. And he's not somebody who favors the SDR. Before the election, everybody was thinking that there will be
a weaker dollar, though, and he got it.
Exactly. He favored a weaker dollar. He's having it. I'm not sure how much it is because he really wants it. It's much more because fiat currencies are an image of the country, of the economy of the country and the geopolitical system. Last year, you had chaos in Europe, and that had an impact on the currency. Not all the economies in Europe were doing bad. Germany was doing well, and think about Europe in the same way as you would think about United States. You have California doing badly, you have maybe Chicago doing well, Texas doing well. So in Europe, you had Germany doing very well, Holland doing very well, Great Britain not that bad, France was not doing very well, but not that bad either. Italy, Greece.
Then you have Italy.
Exactly. Italy, Greece, and Spain and Portugal doing disastrous. They were in a disaster situation. But for the currency, it could have been a stabilizing factor, but it wasn't. The image of the European Union and the euro was Europe is collapsing, it goes to hell, it will disappear from the map, there will be no more, there's going to be a hole full of water in next year. That
okay, Dan, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up to you and get your thoughts on it. A lot of people look at crypto as being the new gold, with anonymity, with you know, the fact that it's finite. I'm wondering what your thoughts are, and that it is even competition for people that normally would have gone into gold or that are going into crypto. What are your thoughts?
I've been very negative on cryptocurrencies. On the technical point, I'm a physicist. I've been programming computers since 1965.
So you don't think the blockchain technology is here to stay, regardless of the different issues of crypto, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, they may come and go, but you don't even believe in the blockchain technology?
No, I didn't say that. On the contrary, I do believe, and let's make a split between the two, the technology aspect of it and the currency aspect of it. Now, for the technology aspect of it, if you want me to speak on the technology aspect, as I was explaining, I've been following software advances since the creation of the computer. The first programming system was the Fortran and COBOL, and I've been programming since then and worked in a computer company. I built computers myself personally. In the 1970s, 1980s and 90s, I built my first 3 PCs were built by myself, and I had to program in basic ASCII language a computer for my diploma to get my physics degree. Blockchain is a great advancement. I wouldn't call it a revolution. I think only salesmen call it a revolution. It is a great advancement in software finance technology and in transfer of information. I worked in a bank in the back office, processing transactions internationally, and it was a mess. And I said it's impossible with the new technologies that they have not updated the system already. I think that blockchain brings an incredible advance. I would call it an upgrade, not a revolution, but a fantastic upgrade like Windows was to MS-DOS. Now, those who are old enough to remember MS-DOS, it was a mess to use it for the consumer. For us professionals and passionate software programmers, it was fun to play with MS-DOS because we looked intelligent while the general public was looking stupid, and we loved that. But Windows simplified the system in such a way in which that the general public was as good as us, the software programmers, in using a computer. Blockchain has that possibility in back office transactions of improving. It's not perfect, and we see now, if you take away the hype, I was recently at 2 conferences, one with Thomson Reuters, who works into transmitting information and selling information, and I was speaking with software specialists in the cryptocurrency, crypto technology, and they all agreed, take away the hype. There is a lot of garbage going around by Bitcoin sellers to hype it and to pretend that it's better than God and that it's the greatest creation since the beginning of the universe. Take that away, and cryptocurrency, crypto technology is great. It has some flaws when it comes to currencies. It was badly designed to be a medium of exchange like gold, but it isn't, because it's just a mathematical creation of the human mind. And if you know what mathematics, many people think that mathematics is a science. Mathematics is not science. Physics, chemistry, biology is science. Mathematics is an instrument that works very well for science, but not always. There are many holes in mathematics that physicists like me, engineers, doctors cannot use. For example, the most famous ones and the simplest one that I can give you, that mathematics is not perfect as Bitcoiners pretend, is give me the solution to the square root of -1. There is no answer. Mathematicians, after 4,000 years, because mathematics is 4,000 years old, have not been able to find a solution to that mathematical formula. So what did they do? They say, okay, we'll leave it open for the moment. We'll say that the answer is an imaginary number. So you just dream it. It can be 1, it can be -1, it can be 1,000, it can be -5,000. Mathematicians, their answer is there is no answer to that mathematical problem. The second one is try to divide 1 by 0. And the answer the mathematicians have been giving you is undefined. You cannot give that answer. And if you ask your, do that test yourself, take a simple calculator or your computer and ask your calculator to do those two operations, square root of -1 and 1 divided by 0. The genius computer is going to tell you error because it doesn't know the answer. Okay?
So that's fascinating. Yeah, I didn't know that.
So, yeah, so crypto is made out of mathematics, and cryptocurrency people, the Bitcoin community, they are saying because it's mathematics, it's precise. How can it be more precise when mathematics itself it's not precise? They also said that you cannot inflate Bitcoin because the number, the prime numbers are limited. That again, anything that a human creates, he can destroy or he can modify. So since it's a mathematical creation, a human creation, it can be expanded to infinity. And we've seen recently that they've started printing, and now there is such a chaos in the cryptocurrencies. They're just, even for me, it's hard to know which one it is, what formula they use, how does it work. And if you ask the crypto sellers,
yeah. So if it's hard for a guy with your background to wrap your head around it, especially because of the quantity of offerings, just think what it's like for the general public.
Exactly, and keep in mind that humans like simplicity. If you are a specialist in a field like I am, I understand how you build a plane. I fly them and I used to build them. But you, for example, do you care how does a plane works? You don't care. You just get into the plane and you hope the plane is in time and gets to destination. How it works and all the machinery, you just don't give a damn. And Bitcoin right now, my observation of Bitcoin, and I've been writing it on Twitter regularly, is that it shows it doesn't work. Complaints from people who use it are by the thousand on Twitter. I made a payment and it hasn't been processed yet. I made a payment and it was supposed, the argument of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and a few days ago, Dan, you could have gone to buy something, and then by the time you got to the register, your Bitcoin was worth half as much in 5 minutes.
Exactly, and that it's funny because they call it gold 2.0. But what was the problem with fiat money, with the dollar, with the euro? It was that because of inflation, because of printing of dollars, the value of your dollar, you're old enough, just like me. I remember when I used to, my flying lesson in 1971 was $14. The same flying lesson today on the same plane, a Cessna 150, that's 50 years later, it's about $150. Nothing has changed. It's the same plane. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they say that an ounce of gold would always buy you a nice suit.
Exactly.
So, right. So let me ask you this, Dan, because and really, you know, this is a great interview. I'm gonna invite you back to when we have, you know, post-holiday crowds, because it's turned into something even better than I thought it would be. But let me ask you this, and let's wrap it on this. That you have listed potential economic reasons for an SDR or something to replace, either in a crisis or because America, under the leadership of our new president, is America first, which means America alone. And if the Chinese, Russians, and the IMF get together, they could come up with the SDR and kind of take away the privilege of the dollar being the reserve currency China starting their own oil exchange to be paid in yuan and gold. What geopolitically, with everything that's happening on the global stage with Russia, with North Korea, with the decertification of the Iran deal, do you most worry about going into next year?
The issue I worry the most from a geopolitical point of view, actually I should put two of them. One is the transition in Saudi Arabia not going well. It has been my black swan for 2 years that something is not going right in Saudi Arabia. If the transition doesn't go well, and you have a collapse of the monarchy in Saudi Arabia, it will trigger a collapse of the petrodollar that was created in the 1970s by Secretary of State Kissinger, and that would have
be a big one. So a de-link maybe the real from the dollar if that happens.
Exactly, and keep in mind that United States doesn't depend anymore on Saudi oil. The biggest client today for Saudi Arabia is no more United States, is China.
Everyone's a customer. Yeah.
So under pressure from China, Saudi Arabia might be forced, even if they don't want, to break the petrodollar. And the second one that people don't think is that the character and the style of Donald Trump, he's not an idiot. He reads and he knows, and he knows that United States doesn't depend on Saudi oil as they did, and the Middle East oil as they did in the 70s. So he might even himself, Donald Trump, might say, the hell with the Saudis. He didn't like the Saudis before the election anyway. So he might say, go wherever you want because I don't need your oil anyway. So it could be the Chinese forcing the Saudis, or it could be United States pushing the Saudis into a crisis, and that will collapse the link. And that could have ripple effects.
Don't you think that would be kind of a strange one, since that was his first official trip as a president to Saudi Arabia? And Saudi Arabia and Israel are allies now. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That that what you see lining up is U.S., Saudi, Israeli access to possibly take on Iran after this proxy war in Yemen.
Yes, but it is
possibly. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is a very fragile. It's a fragile alliance between United States, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. Keep in mind that the popular support for such an alliance in Saudi Arabia is still very weak. And that's why I'm saying that there is a danger of some kind of a civil war, some kind of a palace coup in Saudi Arabia that could change like it changed in 1979 with Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran, something similar.
Okay. All right, Dan, go ahead.
That will have an impact on gold and the U.S. dollar, and that is and there is the second issue that I'm following. It didn't happen this year, but it could happen next year. It's coming very close. What I was mentioning earlier, and that is a treasury war, a currency war between China and Russia alliance against United States dollar. There is a trade war that's going to amplify next year, and Putin and Xi are not very happy with the sanctions that are being placed on their transactions. So they are working very hard.
They already have an alternative SWIFT system.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Dan, fascinating conversation with you. I'm so glad I reached back to you for you to come on. Let's get together mid-year or in the spring and see what's going on. And I wish you and your family and your associates and anyone who reads your blog, I recommend people that are hearing us live and see the video to follow Dan, and you can do that at Popescu. That's your Twitter handle, right?
Yeah, that's where I put very timely information and graphs about the subjects that I usually cover, which is precious metals, and the subjects related to precious metals, which are geopolitics, macroeconomics.
Well, I wish you a great 2018 in all ways, Dan, not just financially, but, you know, life is more than finances. So I hope you have a great 2018, and I want to thank you for taking time during a kind of a holiday season to edify our community. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Dan.
Me too, and Happy New Year to your followers and to everybody.
Thank you, Dan. Everyone, that's Dan Popescu. You could follow him on Twitter at Popescu. And that's it for us today, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Maybe there'll be a little bit more action. If not, we'll abbreviate the sessions once again. Don't just count your pips, count your blessings. See everybody tomorrow. Since today is Tuesday, we'll see you for Turnaround Wednesday. Take care, my F.A.C.E Eagles. You're very welcome, Bill. Thanks again, Dan.
Pleasure.